Hey guys, what's going on? It's Louie here, and welcome to a brand new VOD review. Before we go into today's match, I am going to be doing a quick bit on what you see in the title, which is whether or not you should expect long and react to short, expect short and react to long, or maybe even expect attack, react to the push, or expect to push and then react to the attack. Because if you look even at a pro level, you'll see different pros doing different things in different situations. So firstly, I'm going to give some clips of different examples so you can kind of see what I'm talking about and how there are sort of different reactions and approaches to different situations. And then I will give my explanation on when you should be doing what. So, first example, and I am really hoping I don't get copyright striked for this. I don't think I will. But this is a match from Quadri Aruna and Feng Yixin. I apologize if I am pronouncing that wrong. But take a look at this. Off of the serve, he's ready to attack, Oh crap, I can't attack that, I push. Now, Aruna, ready to attack, Oh crap, I can't attack that, push. And then here it is again in slow motion. Ready to attack, can't, okay, push. Ready to attack, can't, push. Okay, so that's one way. But then you will also see that sometimes players up to a professional level will be ready to kind of receive the short ball, and then the attack is the reactionary shot. So for example, this is a match from Hemming Hu. Again, world-class player, was top 60 in the world, I believe, at his peak. So a very, very strong player, absolutely professional caliber. So on this situation, if we go frame by frame, and again, please don't copyright strike me, you can see he's ready for short, and then picks up that the ball is long, and plays a very strong loop. And another example, Lin Gaiyun versus Lee Seng-soo, pushes to the backhand, gets ready for his own backhand, as you can see. Ready for backhand, ready for long. And oh crap, it's actually short to my forehand. And then he steps in and flicks. And again, another example here. I hope I don't get copyright strike because I'm not actually playing the video. I'm going frame by frame. But like, focus on Lin Gaiyun. He pushes. He's ready for backhand loop first. Okay, can't do that. He pushes. And he's ready for backhand loop again. You can see he's ready for backhand loop. Oh wait, it's not there. Okay, I'm coming. And he loops. And again, on the half long ball, it's kind of okay, ready for short, and then he picks it up because he notices it's drifted long, and he loops. And one more example, you can be ready for flip, ready for attack, and then when you can't, you push. So this begs the question, there are professionals doing it one way, there are professionals doing it another way. When do you do it which way? And as a beginner or intermediate player, which approach should you have? Here's my explanation on when you should be doing what and why. I think especially at a high playing level, on serve return, it is absolutely correct to expect short and react to long as your sort of default situation. And this intuitively makes sense if you think about it, because rhythm-wise, the vast majority of serves are going to require you to move into the table, not move back. I mean, you're on your toes after all. If it is a serve that was intended to be short and then drifts long, the velocity on that type of ball will be so slow that it is extremely easy to react to it and loop. If it is an intentionally long, fast serve, you don't need some giant swing, so again, it is quite easy to just find the ball and play a nice solid shot. And that way on the serves that are coming short, which will be many of them at a high level, you can find the ball fast, give yourself opportunities to flip if that's what you want to do, or if just touching or pushing, make sure those shots are very high quality. And as a matter of fact, I watched my own footage to see what I myself do, and even I approach it this way. In a sort of default situation, I am ready for short, and then I adjust if the ball unintentionally drifts long, or is intentionally long and fast. With that said, There is a huge aspect of pattern recognition and or knowing your opponent that goes into it, and this is not something that can be flowcharted, for lack of a better word, easily as some general thing to stick by every type of shot in every circumstance. For example, if you are playing someone who you know serves 80% of the time long, fast, deep to your backhand, it makes sense to be more mentally ready for that shot. If you're playing someone who struggles to serve short or play short game at all and everything is drifting long, again, you'd want to have it even more in the back of your mind that the ball is probably coming long. If you really think you'll have an opportunity to step around and pivot your forehand off the serve that comes to your backhand, again, it is okay to sort of be ready for that first and then just forehand push as a reaction. So it is situational to an extent. And again, as an example, look at that point from Fang Yuxin and Aruna and how Fang pivots against the serve like he's getting ready to step around loop, realizes that he cannot on this ball, and so he decides to push. Now, super importantly, this principle does not apply the same way when you push. For example, if you push the ball long to your opponent's backhand, just a very long, high quality push to your opponent's backhand, that ball will almost always come back long because your own ball was long. And it is very, very difficult to take a truly long, high quality push and make your own push short. And so, in cases other than serve return, there is a much larger aspect of pattern recognition and or knowing your opponent. On top of this, whether you're a backhand player, whether you are thinking of setting up a flip, etc., all play a part. Just watch a bunch of WTT matches of someone like Lin Gaoyuan, for example, then watch a bunch of maybe Ma Long, and then some of Aruna, and so on. And you can see the difference for yourself. And for what it's worth, this is why sometimes one-on-one advice is important, because every player's personal situation is different, the opponent might be different, and so on. And so when I give tips to one player in a VOD review, for example, and you're looking at my notes, those tips may be great for that player, but not the best advice to follow for somebody else. Anyway, before I get too off track, with all of that said, and like I sort of alluded to, I sometimes give students the advice that they need to be ready to loop first in basically all circumstances and then react by pushing. When I give this advice, it is specifically aimed at developing players who don't yet have the idea of looping in the back of their mind at all. And so, for example, they push one ball long. It's a great, very long push. Obviously, this next ball is going to come back long. The next ball does get pushed back long, and it's easily loopable, and yet they decide to push anyway. You have to get the loop in your arsenal first. And the only way to force yourself to start looping in matches, if you can already do it in practice, is to force yourself to do it. But at levels especially below 2000, the short game is almost non-existent. And just by preparing to loop first, even on serve returns, many players who instinctively would have pushed out of fear or sheer habit will be shocked to see that by being prepared for the loop to begin with, they actually can loop these balls that they thought needed to be pushed. And then by getting this sort of repetition over and over again, by only pushing as a last resort, which again, even at a pro level is fine in some circumstances, you end up with a very strong loop in your arsenal that happens automatically when a ball is loopable. And once you're at that point where there's no fear to hit, you can recognize what is and isn't loopable. And when it drifts long, no matter what your reaction is to hit, then of course this advice would no longer be applicable. But again, there's still that aspect of knowing which balls are most likely to come back long and which ones are probably going to come short. So again, if you give an insanely long, deep push to your opponent's backhand, even if they push that ball, that push is basically never going to come back short, and you should not be ready for short against this ball, even at a high level. You should be getting ready to loop. So it depends on the situation. To be at a point where you can expect short and then still loop the ball if it comes long. You need to be aware that you have that shot in your arsenal, which means to start consciously focusing more on finding out the balls you can hit and then limit testing just how loopable certain balls are that you thought you had to push until you find that limit. And eventually, you can get to a point where you know the limit in your mind, and the second the ball is past that limit, the loop is automatic. And as a final point, just something to think about. I'm not going to go too much into detail because this video is a VOD review, and this was just sort of a bit I wanted to do at the beginning. But as a final point, there is a difference between being ready to hit, whether that is a flip or a loop, and then reacting by pushing, and being ready for long and reacting to coming in. These are two different things. You can be ready to come in and react to long while simultaneously being ready to hit and reacting to pushing, which is especially applicable to players who like to start points with a backhand flip. With that out of the way, hopefully that helps clear things up, and let's go ahead and start on this VOD review. So for today's VOD review, we are going to be taking a look at a match from Vic. This is his first submission. He is using Yasaka Rising Dragon 2 max thickness on the black, and he is using T-Bar Grass, which for those of you who don't know is a Pips rubber, zero sponge. I have not heard of this blade before, but he says it's an outer carbon, not that fast. I'm sure it's fine. And rating is 1849 when this match was played. I started playing table tennis in 2020, and my first tournament was September 2022. About 4 months after switching from inverted to long pips, I've been alternating between chopping and blocking the whole time, and still don't know what I want to do. Foot disabilities hamper my mobility. I'm probably para class 10, but haven't got classified yet. My main goal right now is to figure out a playstyle that I can commit to and improve my transition between attack and defense. I think right now my biggest strength is my feeling behind the table, but the movement weakness means I have to rely on my long reach after I get there. Practice is one 1 hour session a week with a 2500 coach. Open play whenever I can against players in the 1400 to 2100 range. League every week against 1650 to 1900s on table 2, or some very strong opponents when you're on table 1. And this match was played against someone who was adjusted to about 2100 after the tournament at the US Open last December. And you are the tall person without glasses, losing 8-11 in the 5th. And just for reference, I did send Vic a DM just asking how limited his movement is, so that I'm not giving any advice that's not possible. And he said the main thing that causes him the most discomfort is the lateral movement side to side. If I had to guess, and I've watched like the first couple points of this earlier, but being a true modern defense chopper is probably going to be extremely difficult because that is such a demanding play style. So I would say that probably having a more, I don't want to say unorthodox, but a closer to the table long pip style where you can block with them, you can pick hit with them when you want to, and then very occasionally when you need to and you're under a lot of pressure and you're already back from the table, you chop, is probably best. But you probably shouldn't have like modern defense chopping far away from the table as your first idea as a playstyle, just because that is so physically demanding and the movement for it is very difficult. There's actually a coach at my club, so I would look up when you get a chance some matches from Shenshen, who is the co-owner of the club that I play at. She was Chinese national team, so of course she was insanely strong at her peak. One of the best players in the world with a very unique long pips playing style on the backhand where she's not a chopper by any means, more so all around where she will block with them, she will hit with them, she will chop block with them. She will, in an emergency, go back and chop, but it's not her go-to style. She plays in WTT now, and still not playing full-time is easily 24 to 2500 plus when she's on. So I would definitely recommend checking out some of her matches, because it might be the sort of playstyle that suits you as well. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this match, and to everyone watching at home, I hope you enjoy the video. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Again, our protagonist is the player on the close side of the table. His opponent, this kid on the far side, is 2100, or got adjusted to about 2100 after the tournament. So he is going up against a very, very strong opponent. So this should be a high level, high quality match. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. First point of the match, not too worried. A little too passive. It's fine. You got jammed, but that was more so just a good shot on his part. That's fine too. Your idea is right. I can tell you're trying to just feel him out and see where his shots are coming. Technique was not the best there, but it's so early. I'm gonna keep watching. If it continues to be an issue, I'll talk more about it. Their feeling is good. That's just a silly misread on the serve. Not too worried about that. Okay. Again, it's first game. You're missing some serve, so what? Okay, this point is problematic. So, this is something I harp on my students all the time when I'm doing private lessons. And what I harp on is you have to have a limit in your mind of once it is at X point on the table in these backhand to backhand exchanges, you will play a forehand. You have to have some limit in mind, because otherwise what happens is exactly what happened here, where your opponent is just exploiting you, where you're playing a backhand, he's playing you here, and you're playing your backhand all the way over here simply because you played this first shot with your backhand, and then he's dragging you back into the corner, you're playing another backhand, then he's dragging you here again, and you're playing another backhand. And at a really high level, even with the pips, if you're staying close to the table with the pips and not necessarily going back and chopping, then you're going to get into a lot of these backhand to backhand exchanges. So against a lefty, you'll have a lot of exchanges this way. Against a righty, you'll have a lot of backhand to backhand exchanges cross court. And because of that, you have to have a limit somewhere. I'm not necessarily going to recommend that you eventually try to step around and play your forehand on this ball, because that's probably not very practical. But you do need to have a limit, and it's up to you really, as long as it's nothing ridiculous. It could be here, it could be here, it could be here, but you need to have some limit somewhere reasonable to where once it's past X point on the table, you will play a forehand, because it's actually less footwork to find the ball and play your forehand on these wide shots than to move and scramble to play your backhand here and then scramble back to play your backhand and be running back and forth, because you're kind of rushing and tunnel visioned on the one shot without really watching what your opponent is doing. So that's the first issue. And if you just watch the point in slow motion, hopefully you'll see it now. And now he just goes wide to your forehand. And again, you don't have any limit, because this push especially, like, this is a weak push from your opponent. You are playing with pips, you aren't giving him much spin to work with, and he's just dinking the ball. This ball is going to bounce and sit up with very little spin. And I know you know how to play a good forehand. It doesn't require a ton of movement or strong, like super strong footwork. You can just sit on that ball and play a nice solid forehand, and that would be like bread and butter. Easy point for you. And again, he's exploiting. Now he's pushing you back this way. And now he's going the other way. And he's pushing you back again. And now he's going here again. And so he's in complete control of this point. This one's really bad. Like that has to be a forehand. And again, that one, you finally play a forehand. At the end of the point, the other thing I will say is your forehand is a little bit too big. So your opponent is playing with topspin. He is putting a fair amount of topspin on this ball. And you do not need this level of backswing against topspin. The ball is already past the top of its bounce right. This is the top of the bounce right here. This is where you should be making contact with the ball. Or maybe a fraction of a second later than that. But your paddle is still going back here while the ball is at its point where it should be getting hit. So it's just too much. And now the ball's falling and falling and falling. And you're just now, while the ball is shooting down, starting to come forwards with your paddle. Your feet are good here. Your weight is getting ready to be transferred. So this is great. You just need a smaller arm motion on the shot. If anything, take that extra size from your backswing and turn it into more follow through, but keep your actual starting position on the shot extremely compact. That's fine. It's good. A lot of serve return mistakes. I think you just kind of get in the feel. That's fine. I think you need to work on developing a more compact forehand. Because, yes, you are able to chop this ball the way that you did, but it would be much more optimal if you could basically start an inch, maybe start your paddle right here, and roll that ball with some spin, with some top spin. It'll put your opponent under more pressure and prevent you from having to basically scramble to get these balls on the table to win points. Just a thought, this is not necessarily bad, and your feeling away from the table is very, very good. That has to be hit. Yeah. I think mentally you are tunnel visioned and you're not picking up on the fact that he's pushing a lot of balls to your forehand. Good. That's very good. Yeah, you need to, you're using your pips as a crutch here. You do not, and the reason I say that you're using the pips as a crutch is because this ball doesn't require any footwork to get to. It requires minimal footwork. And you are so scared of the spin that you instead twiddle and stick your paddle in the way just to get it on the table. And then you twiddle back, and he has all the control of the point at this point. And the other reason it's a crutch is because it's not like this was a reactionary, you didn't know that the ball was going there. You knew the ball was coming to your forehand right here. Right here you're twiddling, and you're already aware of exactly where the shot is coming. So you have a good eye for the ball and what he's doing. You're very quick to see what's happening, but then you don't have any confidence in your shot. And again, you don't need a huge forehand. You just need a stable, compact motion with lots of topspin to put him under more pressure, because this is crutching with the pips. The other stuff is fine, but yeah, that I'm not the biggest fan of. Oh yeah, so the forehand does need a lot of work. I let the first one slide because it was early in the match, but this is very, very, very big and not stable. So this might be an issue of fundamentals. I'm going to pull up my own clip, and this is why I like recording my own trading, just for reference. It's not necessarily to just put it on my channel, but by having these clips, I always have kind of stuff I can reference as an example. Okay, this is actually, I do not play the best shot on the planet here, but the idea is right, and this is a very, like, I probably couldn't find a more similar situation if I tried. Left-handed opponent pushing the ball. Mine is a ball that I pivot on, but pushing a ball that can be looped to the forehand. And I want you to watch the difference in approach. You get this ball, and I am begging somebody, if anyone is good, like, you can see that, like, YouTube is buffered. And yet, for some reason, when I go frame by frame, it's still, like, buffers. And so I have to wait, like, 3 seconds between each frame that I do. And it's super frustrating because it never used to do this. So if anyone knows how to resolve this, I would be so grateful. But anyway, going frame by frame, look at the breakdown in technique. You basically forget all of your fundamentals on the forehand. There's no conscious process. And of course, once you're at a really high level, it doesn't have to be conscious because it'll just happen automatically. But you don't have any thought process of, this is where my paddle's going to start. This is where my paddle's going to finish. I'm going to keep my shot sharp. And even when you're going for big winners, you have to have sharp technique. You don't want to just flail your paddle at the ball and try to smack it full speed. This is not the ball to go for a winner on generally, because you have table in the way of your feet. Like this, the table is in the way of your body, which makes it hard to hit through the ball the same way you could, like, stepping around the ball, and then you have all this open space on the side. But just, again, comparing, okay, I'm not going to do the frame by frame because it's painful. Yeah, timing is okay. Just technique broke down. And then just look at the comparison here. Again, this is a push. And that's all you have to do. Now, granted, the push I got is higher, and I probably could have gone for a winner if I wanted to, but the feet are still sharp. And you can just spin literally into the last inch of the table and play solid. So use this as a reference for how the forehand should look. Yeah, forehand technique is like miles below the rest of your game in terms of playing standard. So you need some fundamentals on your forehand. So here's what I'm going to do to help you get some fundamentals on your forehand. Anytime you are playing a forehand, and I have shot tutorials coming up, and I will have a kind of more true guide on forehand loop where I do some really technically crisp examples, but I want you to imagine an invisible string between your left hand and your right hand. So there is something tying, like linking your right hand and your left hand. And whenever your right hand moves, your left hand has to move with it. Whenever your left hand moves, your right hand has to move with it. This is for the forehand. And what this will do is it'll stop the right side of your body from becoming disconnected from the left side of your body and causing your shoulder to open up and causing the technique to break down. So every time you play a forehand from now on, imagine an invisible string between these two hands. And what this will do, other than that, is it'll also force your technique to be more linear. It'll force it to be more of a sharp, straight line to where you finish. And it'll force you to turn your body more and keep this shoulder closed to the table instead of opening up. Regardless of your movement on the legs, which your weight transfer is actually quite good. But even if you weren't able to do this 100%, we can at least get the upper body portion right. And I think what you need to do is just focus on this. Keep your backswing much, much, much smaller. And finish by your left eyebrow every shot. Because yeah, that's a big issue right now.
Nice, good job.
Nice twiddle. That's fine. This forehand, the technique is actually very good. So once you're back and you have some time, your technique is actually very good. Could you have taken it maybe not a half a second, like a tiny bit earlier? Sure, but this is fine. The quality could be improved again by utilizing your body more. You can see your left arm is kind of just off to the side in no man's land, not doing anything. And so there's a disconnect between the right side of your body and the left side of your body, which is causing your shot to be lower quality, which is then allowing your opponent to block you down and force you to fight really, really hard for these points. And these types of things, I know I haven't talked about tactics too much, but once you're at this level, 1800 to 2000, 2100 in the case of your opponent, it is these little things that make the difference between winning and losing and improving. And right now that's quite a big issue. But you play the rest of the point quite well. You give him some tricky shots, you twiddle, he's uncomfortable. Again, I would try to focus on having a limit of where you're going to play the forehand so you don't get stuck on the backhand this side and then he pushes you out this way. But overall not bad. Yeah, your feeling is very, very good. That's fine. Yeah, forehand too big. Forehand way too big. Everything fine until this forehand. Again, let's find the top of the bounce. This is the top of the bounce, like right here. This is the exact top of the bounce. And your paddle is still going back, and it's so far behind your body that I can see it right here. So this backswing is entirely too large against a shot that you really don't need it on. Your paddle at this point should be making contact. And again, take all this backswing and turn it into a bigger follow through if you still want the swing size. But by having this level of backswing, you're late on the shots and then you're going to be very slow recovering. And so it gives him a lot of initiative to put you under a lot of time pressure, which makes it difficult to play. Which is why, after the first attack, you don't have time to play a second ball. Movement aside, if you had just had a little bit more compact of emotion, you would have been able to play a more aggressive shot here. But instead, you kind of have to play this shot, and so it misses. Yeah. There it's excusable because the ball is so loose that like that's just a winner. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, there's a lot of pattern recognition you're not picking up on. He has a tendency, and I've noticed over the past game and a half, on this push he always has a tendency to do this and then drag you basically here and here. And so by this point in the game you need to have that in the back of your mind, because this is a mistake due to a delayed reaction to the ball. A kind of, oh crap, wait, that was a forehand, I need to loop that, and then I can't, and then the technique breaks down. Yeah, I think for your style, I do stand by now. I think you would benefit from developing a style like Shen Shen for my club. That's the type of style that I would try to imitate, because I think it'll be very beneficial. That's great. That's a very, very good twiddle. But yeah, you do like to drag your backhand, and you don't need crazy good footwork to just sit on like this ball and play a deep loop into the last inch on the table. And you'll put basically anyone under 2300, and anyone under 2300 is gonna be under immense pressure. if you spin the ball into the white line. They're going to give you a passive block, or they're going to block off the end of the table. And with the passive block, it at least gives you control of the rhythm of the point, and then you can kind of dictate what you want to do for the rest of the rally. And then if you're in a point in the rally where they give you the loose ball, go for the crazy technique. Go for the wonky shots. Play your fun game to win the point, but you have to have control of the point to do that. Miss hit on the serve. It happens. That's fine. You got a net. Yeah, your pip's crutching on the serve returns. Like, yes, you are worried about the spin, and the pips is a safe shot that will stop the serve return from being egregiously high. But if you want to improve more, you are still eventually going to have to know how to return serves with the inverted rubber when you can. And by doing so, you will, on at least the opening shot, be able to put your opponent under more pressure. Now, if you loop the first ball extremely spinny and he gives you a ball to the backhand, yeah, just put the pips in the way, dampen the spin, play your game. But you still want to try and take the opportunities that you can. Yeah, the forehand is not stable. That was very... It's very fortunate that forehand landed with this technique. There's a lot... Like, there's no sharpness to it. The arm is very flaily. Kind of just flailing at the ball. And so your timing has to be so perfect to land. Whereas the benefit of the sharp technique is that if your timing is off, the shot still has a good chance of landing. Yeah, same. Forehand too big. Good job picking up that it was short. Swing size is huge. And again, it makes you really late. There was another student I had with this problem. This one's not too bad. And you really don't need all of this. The only reason you need so much swing here is because all of your power is coming from right here. There's a huge disconnect, again, between the right side of your body and the left side of your body. Legs aside. So, again, what I would recommend is when your left hand moves, your right hand moves. When your right hand moves, your left hand moves. Think of it like you're a robot. And it will force you to turn your body fully and give you more connection between the right and left half of your body. Because look, again, there's so much arm in this swing. And so it makes your recovery difficult. And so it forces, that's why your pip shot is lower quality. Because like here, just theoretically, you loop this ball, let's say you're already recovered by here, because you're still recovering at this point. You could probably have the paddle up and just drive forwards with the long pips and probably win the point outright. But because you're late on the recovery, you end up having to chop. Good. Late on the forehand. Again, timing ideally should be top of the bounce. If you're far back, which you do like to go back, you can take it a little bit later while it's falling, which is totally normal. But even there, you're relatively speaking too late. They're actually too early, and again, it's technique on the forehand. So next, you said you have lessons with a 2500 coach. Next lessons, whenever you take lessons, get them to drill down your forehand. I know of their Chinese provincial team, they've probably got pretty crispy forehand technique. Get them to drill that down. And you don't have to do drills in training that involve a lot of footwork. Maybe just even multi-ball to one place where it's topspin or underspin. Like just stuff that drills down the technique on the forehand to where it's completely automatic and your reaction instinctually is to play with good technique. That's good. That's very good. That's fine. That's fine. Nice. Excellent. The rest of your game is really solid. Like this is very good table tennis. Nice.
Good job.
Your ability to twiddle, your feeling for the ball, your tactics, all very solid. But yeah, your forehand technique. Like, you're fortunate that this ball landed. And then this one, something didn't quite work, and so now the shot misses. Whereas if you had taken 20% power off, just played it with a little bit less power, and more sharp technique and good placement, e.g. white lines, then you probably win the point outright. Yeah, forehand technique. I'll watch to the end, but I probably won't have much more comments. So I'll cut anything where I don't make comments. But if I see anything else, I'll point it out. A lot of the same though. Your serves are good. Nice twiddles.
Hey, I told you.
Yeah, when it connects, your quality is good. So I wouldn't. I know this went to 5. I wouldn't be surprised if everything happens to connect here and you win the game. But it's not stable. Way too big. But nice rally. Nice. Really, really good. Your gameplay itself is very good. That's very nice by your opponent. Nice. You tried to force these kind of awkward back-end exchanges, hoping that he will stay here, you will stay here with the pips, because he's going to play weaker and weaker shots if he continues to play to the pips, and then you can switch him wide to the forehand, and you have all control of the point. But what you have to be wary of is when your opponent switches you first, you tend not to realize it, and you're still mentally in this back-end to backhand mode, even though the switch has already happened, and you need to change to forehand. Because here you do the back-end to backhand exchange, and you stay on the backhand, and he's uncomfortable, and then you change. And you catch him off guard, and it works. That's good. Nice. Yeah, when he stays on your backhand is good. And a lot of your mistakes come off of this forehand. Again, there's a disconnect. And the technique is not sharp. In terms of being direct from where you start to where you finish. Another way to explain it is whatever angle you create. I think I've drawn this in paint for someone else. I'm almost certain I have. But I'm just making up examples. But this is what I mean by angle sharp. Let's say you create this angle with your paddle. Well, you want the paddle to follow this trajectory so that when you contact the ball, you're contacting it on a tangent and creating this spin through the air. If that makes sense. Because let's say you have this contact, but then instead of brushing up, you like pull the paddle forwards. Well, now the ball is just going to go forwards without much spin on it, because you're no longer hitting it at this tangent. You're just hitting through the ball, which results in a less optimal contact. So hopefully that makes sense. Like if you were to make a 90-degree angle, which obviously that would be, well, let's say an 89-degree angle. This is not, I'm not a good artist. But let's say you make this angle, which obviously in most circumstances this is too open. But if you're trying to spin with this angle, you would need to go up this way. If you have a very closed angle like this, then you'd want to be basically on top of the ball, and you would want your paddle going this way. But you don't want to change your trajectory through the air, so you don't want to have your paddle here and then like here when it finishes, where you're kind of hooking your elbow through the air, and you don't want this angle and then pulling it forwards. You want this angle and then stay with that angle, and it's the same angle when you finish the shot. This is bad. This is good. Your feeling for the ball is very good. And yeah, these twiddles are very nice as well. You're playing well. Good. See? Okay, so here it is again. You got away with it, but you don't switch out of backhand to backhand mode when it's actually switched out of backhand to backhand mode. And again, it's a lot of the same, but like you're backhand to backhand here, and when he stays on his backhand and you stay on your backhand, you're good, because then eventually you can switch him. But when he switches first, you don't realize it. So you're still backhand to backhand mode, you're backhand to backhand mode, you're backhand to backhand mode. Everything's fine and dandy. Still backhand to backhand mode. You're varying the spin, making him uncomfortable. And this ball needs to be a forehand. If this ball was played with a forehand, it just needs to be a spinny loop last inch right here, or a spinny loop last inch right here, or a spinny loop last inch to the middle of the table. It doesn't have to be this big, powerful forehand, just a solid, stable shot. And instead, now he's in control of the point because of this. And you happen to salvage it, but that's his point 9 times out of 10. Nice. Great twiddle. Here it's just placement, which I could go on about placement right now, but I don't think it's your biggest issue, because there's some more pressing issues that you need to focus more on first. Yeah, like the technique is tough on the forehand, and I understand it on the ones, like, and I understand the movement is limited on some of them, but on the ones where you don't have to move too much, you really want to try and get your technique sharper. Good serves. I wouldn't have changed the serve here. He really did not like that serve. But, and then with the pip serve, you're kind of letting him. Serving with the pips is very risky against a good player, because you're just giving him all the control of the point. Yeah, win or lose here, you would like, fixing the issues would allow you to win more comfortably, because like, again, there it's forehand technique. Like, even if you had like win or lose, it doesn't make sense for me to micro-analyze the last 3 points or whatever, because there's more pressing issues that could make a bigger difference. But yeah, same issue. A lot of the same. And you also got tired. You stopped twiddling and stuff. But anyway, overall a good match. Let me type your notes, and I will be back. Alright, I have my notes for you. And they're quite short, however, extremely important, as in this brief, especially this note, is by far the biggest thing holding back your game, and will make a world of difference if you hone down on it more than anything else in training. But anyway, firstly, look up, she goes by Shan Shan, but look her up on YouTube. Watch her video on how to attack with the pips, and then just watch some of her matches as well, because I think that this style will really, really suit you. Learning to hit with the pips with the ultra high quality shots will give your opponent a hard time, and then you can also mix in chop blocks, chops, blocks, weird stuff on top of that, and you'll have a field day, especially with a lot of the kids that just play like robots and all they know how to do is hit cross court. You will give them such a hard time if you can learn to do this. So I would highly recommend emulating this sort of style. Make sure that you have a limit in mind when you're in these backhand to backhand exchanges, to where once the ball has passed whatever point you pick on the table, you change from your backhand to your forehand. At first, this is something you have to consciously focus on, but as you do it more and more, it'll eventually be automatic. Like, if anyone who's played a ton gets kind of that ball that's in between. It's not like we're consciously thinking, oh, it's past this point, let's time to change to the forehand. But it does have to start that way, and then eventually it'll just be automatic. And like I said, most importantly, forehand has major issues and is the most important thing we need to work on. Now, I understand that you like to go for fade shots, and so like going for the winner down the line, sometimes you need to open your shoulder, and putting away those loose balls is not what I'm talking about. I'm more so talking about just your standard forehand in general. The technique needs to be a lot sharper, and the way I would work on it is as you start the shot and initially make contact with the ball. Obviously, you don't want to do this all the way to your follow through, otherwise your left hand would be way above your head and it would look very goofy. But keep your left hand up with your right hand, and imagine an invisible link between your left hand and your right hand. So as you're starting the shot and initially making contact, when the left hand moves, the right hand moves, and vice versa. So when you turn your body to the right to get ready for the forehand, not just your right arm, but your left shoulder and your left hand go to the right as well. And then when you turn to the left, your left and right hand both also start turning to the left. And the second thing is the motion itself needs to be much more compact and overall more in front of you instead of kind of behind your body. So less backswing. If you want to keep the swing size the same, you can do more follow through instead of more backswing, as long as you keep it sharp. And in terms of sharp, just use your left eyebrow as a gauge of the general location of like the height of where your paddle should be finishing. Obviously, don't hit yourself in the head in your eyebrow, but that's kind of a gauge that you should use. And then finally, try to start developing the ability to return spinny serves with your inverted rubber on the forehand. This is something you sort of just need to jump off of the deep end with. It'll be rough at first, and it'll just get better with time. If you're in some super tight situation, 9-9 in the decider, and you have to be safe to get into the point because you know you'll have a chance in the open rally, sure, use the pips, get the ball on the table. But if it's just a typical point and you're getting a long serve to your forehand, that needs to be hit. And again, it doesn't need to be this flashy big forehand. Just spin it deep into the last inch of the table, and it'll work wonders for you in terms of generating points. But that's going to do it for this VOD review. I know this was a very long video, so to all of you who stuck through it, I appreciate you so much. Make sure to leave a big thumbs up, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. If you want to talk table tennis, or you just want to have general questions, or you have your own match you want to submit, join the Pawn Connect Discord server. It's always super lively in here. There's always fun stuff to talk about. As a reminder, I will have a shot tutorial coming soon. It will be a tutorial on how to play a backhand loop. That video might take a little bit of time to make, so bear with me, but it is coming soon. I might have actually some more drills in between that. I thought that I would have a shot tutorial as kind of my next tutorial, but I might do just some drills in the meantime while I work on that video, because I need to actually take some time to go to the club and record myself doing the shot, very mechanically sound. But anyway, thank you all again for watching, and until next time.